anyone to see your face, then turn your camera off. So it's my name's Maureen Connolly, and I'm the director of the Brock Center of Excellence for Inclusive and Adaptive Physical Activity. And we are having our monthly webinar, and today we have a colleague from Windsor, Chad Sutherland, who's going to be talking to us about implementing a community-based adaptive physical exercise program on campus, APEX. And then we'll have an opportunity to interact with Chad once he finishes his presentation. So I'm really delighted that Chad's here. He has been an attendee at some of our webinars, and it's just great that we're able to give him some time to present. So welcome, Chad, and over to you.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me today. I'm really excited to show some of the work that we're doing here in Windsor. So I am the founder and co-director of the APEX Research Group. That's kind of my passion project, if you will. My daytime job is the Director of Operations for the Center for Human Performance and Health here in the Department of Kinesiology at the University of Windsor. And so today I want to talk to you about our APEX program. And I want to take you more so through my journey, I guess, into the APEX program, and maybe a little more of a story than an intense research discussion on how we've kind of worked through our program. So I'm going to start by just giving you an overview of a story from CBC that covered our program, ironically in 2011. So time is flying by quickly, but I'll quickly show this video.
Hi, Chad. We can't hear the video. So if you stop sharing and reshare again, there should be an option to share your audio.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. I always forget. It's not an obvious button.
And where do I do that, sorry?
So if you click
include
share,
computer sound.
Computer sound. Yeah, it's a toggle.
Okay. And if you could just tell me now.
Researchers at the University of Windsor are once again.
Yep, we can hear it now. If you put it a little bit louder on your end, it might come through a little better.
By getting them moving, CBC's Allison Johnson has the story.
Perfect.
Twice a week, 20 members of community living hit the gym. This is no walk in the park. They're here to push their limits. The Balanced Approach is a joint project between the university and Community Living Essex. All of the participants are intellectually disabled. Some have physical challenges. Fear and intimidation may have kept them out of the gym in the past, but now they're pros.
When you got the motion in your mind that, yes, I can do this, keep going. Don't give up.
Researchers are tracking body weight, blood pressure, and cardiovascular fitness. Final results aren't in yet, but they don't really seem all that important right now.
I can't explain how far it has exceeded my expectations. I've been here to visit and I've seen what's been going on, and to see the improvement, certainly in a physical way, but in a social way too. And to see them when they're here, to see the level of their confidence grow and their self-esteem.
In 11 weeks, participants have increased their strength, some by as much as 70%, and lost up to 20 pounds.
Losing weight. Around the waist, like pants that a little too tight. Yeah. Get in there, no problem.
They're also learning about healthy living and nutrition.
Normally, you used to go to a restaurant, you get a big plate of fries and big plate of chicken. Well, I don't get that no more. I only get like 10 pieces of fries.
Yeah.
That's it.
You have good willpower.
Well.
The study ends this month, but part of the goal has always been to educate participants so they can exercise on their own.
Really, at the end of the day, if we can get them enjoying exercise, having fun, and continue this on, really, it's been a success for us.
And for participants who will leave the study stronger, healthier, and a little wiser.
Turn the television off when eating meals. Also, stay away from the computer too. Okay?
Thank you. Allison John.
So there's a quick overview of what our program would look like, which I think will give you a little context as I move through the presentation today. But the one thing I did want to talk about was how we kind of got started. And I can't take credit for that for sure. And ironically, Lynn Shepley and Laurie Houston, who work at Community Living Essex County, reached out to the university to ask if there was anyone at the university who kind of specialized in exercise. And they left me a voicemail that they were interested in getting an exercise program for adults who had an intellectual disability. And to be honest, at that time, I'd only ever worked with high performance athletes. And so I wasn't quite sure what they were looking for or what I could do to help them. And a few meetings later, we kind of kicked off the idea of starting a community-based program here at the university. Now, I will tell you, wearing my hat as a kinesiology and strength conditioning coach, that is my background. So I did my undergrad in kinesiology. I did my master's in sport and exercise biomechanics, really looking at cumulative spine loading. And my PhD work looks at ACL injuries in the how fatigue, I guess, affects ACL injuries. So this isn't really in my wheelhouse per se. So it took a lot of learning at the very beginning. But what we do know from kinesiology, I guess my degree using that, is there's obviously a lot of positive effects on health. So stronger muscles and bones, increased cardiovascular fitness, healthier body weights, improved self-esteem, and the list goes on and on of what exercise can do. However, what I wasn't very sure about was what this would look like for adults with an intellectual disability. And this is where it kind of really hit home that we needed to do something, we needed to act. You know, we found higher rates of sedentary behavior. Research has showed less regular physical activity, higher rates of obesity, higher rates of obesity-related secondary health issues, so things like diabetes and high blood pressure. And that daily activity is maybe too low for health benefits. So even some people who were exercising, it was too low to actually get any benefit. And they were extremely low at ages of 50 plus. And we know life expectancy is increasing and we want it to be healthy. So after doing this kind of literature review, if you will, I was convinced that I think as a kinesiologist or our department, we could make an impact here. But before we got going on a program, I really wanted to look into what were the main barriers for adults who had an intellectual disability and how did it compare to my experiences. And really the most common barrier I found was cost and inadequate transportation, lack of social support from others, and actually negative support. So discouragement of exercise from important people. And as we got moving along in our program, it was things like if family members didn't like to exercise, that wasn't one of the options presented to our participants. Or if their support worker wasn't into exercise, that wasn't kind of one of the options they were given during that time. So that was a key thing we wanted to work on in our APEX program. And we did find some research that if support workers believe exercise produces positive outcomes for the person they support, there's a better chance of participation. And really, there needed to be more resources based on adapted exercise. And I will say this slide here hung in my office for years and years until I actually moved and got an office with a window, because everything we did really came back to this slide. How can we remove these barriers to get people exercising and get them on a healthier lifestyle and track considering these barriers? So for instance, we want our program to be cost effective. Our program's actually free. We support transportation costs. We cover parking costs. We actually ask family members and support workers to work out with us and together with their participant or if it's their child or the person they support. And we've turned around some support workers who got started on a fitness journey through this exercise program. So who are we, this APEX research group? I just wanted to spend a minute here because, you know, really today I'm super fortunate to be able to talk to everyone, but this is the work of many, many people, whether it's colleagues, faculty members, community organizations, but really the heart of what we do is the participants, the people who community living supports and other community members who come into our program. This is really why we do all the work that we do. But also their family members play an integral role in this. Support workers play an integral role. And our university students, none of this would be possible, as you'll see, without huge support from university students who want to engage in volunteer activities or internship projects or research projects and so forth. Community Living Essex County was a huge impact for us, definitely put a lot of trust in us, supported us, and really helped us along this process so we could get this journey started. And lastly, the university faculty as well as athletics, and letting us utilize space, letting it be cost effective so we can offer this program for free. So the Apex Research Group is a lot of people, and I'm presenting a lot of people's work today. I just have the privilege of presenting it to you. So what does our program look like? It's 12 weeks in duration, and our participants come down to the university twice a week to work out. They work out for roughly an hour and a half, and there's one trainer per participant. And that is a really key trait to our program, I think, is having that 1-to-1 ratio, where our participants get individualized training, coaching, and really get that ability to build a relationship with their trainers. So how does the day start? It starts with a warm-up, so usually about 10 minutes. They can walk on our indoor track. Some will choose to use a stationary bike. But this is really a time where they get to communicate and get to know their trainer. And so you can overhear lots of conversations about their favorite sport team, or maybe the music they like to listen to, or what they did the night before, and really try to break down that kind of participant-trainer barrier and build a strong relationship for their exercise journey to get started. And then next we move into cardiovascular training, which is 20 minutes long. And we have a target heart rate of 70% of the participants' maximum heart rate. Now, again, that varies on ability and where they are on their fitness journey, but we do follow it and track it to make sure that we're making progressions and they're getting the health benefits they needed. So this is one of our very keen cycling participants who enjoyed getting on the bike every single day and was very, very good at it. Here's some other options, though. Some people wanted to go to the track. Some people wanted to use a stationary bike instead of a spin bike. Some people got on a treadmill, and some even would use a stair climber and a rowing machine. If there's any track people in the room, you'll notice the picture on the left, and maybe you'll recognize this athlete. If not from this photo, hopefully from this one here. But she's been at the last 3 Olympics, and she was a former University of Windsor student who trains in the St. Denis Center while our program goes on. And our participants were just so thrilled to be sharing a track with an Olympian who they eventually got to watch on TV and follow and get autographs from. And it was just a really great experience. Then they move into the whole body kind of resistance training. And this is where they get into the gym and they're using weight machines, as you can see here. They're doing a leg press in the video, which is actually part of our manual, what I'm going to get to later. And below it is a shoulder press exercise. And these are very common of what we would see. So they kind of do one exercise for each major muscle group of the body. And it takes about 30 minutes for them to get through the whole body resistance training. So here's a couple special videos that I've pulled out.
Good job, Steven. Nice work. Next, good job, Steven.
And while we have so many great videos, the one thing I really like at the beginning of that is you can see when he first pushes it up and he tells his trainer, this is heavy. And it is heavy. They are doing a resistance training program that's matched to their needs with progression and building muscle mass. Here's another video of one of our participants bench pressing.
Come on, Josh. Come on, Josh.
So you can see lifting a significant amount of weight and getting good coaching and instruction, making sure they go all the way down and they complete each rep to the standard of the program. And then lastly, we finish up with a group sport or activity. As you can see in the picture, this might take the shape of a basketball game or a shoot around. It might take 2 participants playing badminton, playing catch with a football. And ping pong was something that kind of just happened, actually. In the room, there's a few ping pong tables folded up. Participants were asking about it. And this was one of the neat things to see happen that was unexpected is we started pulling out the ping pong table. And while at the beginning, like everyone else, myself included, the rally would only be 2 or 3 times for the ball going over the net. By the end of the program, it was a lot of fun counting 18, 19, 20 shots that would go back and forth. So really seeing a lot of progress in these different sport and game activities. but it was also a great social time. So it was a time where they got to meet their peers and other people in the program and other trainers. So it wasn't just secluded to them doing the group activity or sport with their own trainer. We really tried to get the group back together and have that peer-to-peer camaraderie. And then lastly, they ended with a fun flexibility training and cool down. So it's standards, stretching, and yoga poses that you would see. And so what did we see from this? So we had to do an initial assessment of all our participants to make sure they were ready and cleared for physical activity. We had orientation sessions with the testing equipment as well as with the resistance training and getting into the gym. And then we did track some general health measures. And so we looked at body weight, resting heart rate and resting blood pressure, grip strength, sit and reach, measuring flexibility, and a Rockport 1 mile walking test for cardiovascular health. And the one thing I will point out is not every single one of our participants had the same goal. So not every participant had the goal of losing weight. Some didn't need to lose weight, some were looking to gain weight, some were looking to lose. So it was really individualized on kind of what the goal or objectives for each of our participants was. But if we pool this together just to see kind of the success of the program, so you can see the measures on the left are weight, the walking test, the heart rate, the blood pressure, the flexibility, and grip strength, so right and left hands. And then the number of those participants who improved on that test. So you can see people who were looking to lose weight, 10 of the 15 kind of succeeded, where if you look at the 1 mile walk test, 14 of the 15 improved on that score. So we did pool the data, but we also looked individually at each participant as well. If in pooling the data on fitness measures that were the same, we did see that cardiovascular fitness significantly got better and that systolic blood pressure got significantly better kind of pre-post. Now, while the physical measures kind of make sense, you know, if people aren't exercising and they get involved in an exercise program, we would expect that general health measures would get better. So that wasn't, a huge surprise. But the one thing we were really interested in is getting this exercise intervention in to our fitness center, as well as are the participants going to like it? And we had absolutely amazing attendance. I'm not sure if we had a single participant miss a single session, which never happens in a training study. I can tell you that for sure. They definitely engaged in the exercise program and getting involved in all aspects of it. Secondly, all of our participants were comfortable integrating with the participants in our university campus gym. So they worked out alongside our university students, and that was not an issue. So what did we learn? And maybe this, having a kinesiology background and tackling this, the physiological measures made sense, but the things that really were a highlight for us is the level that the participants understood the exercise. And we had examples of having other university members in the gym and not performing something correctly. And our participants were able to point that out, whether they were swinging their back too much, they weren't bending their knees. And that was really interesting to see, as well as the health tips. It was interesting the next time I went out to community living and talked to some support workers, we got a few comments. You're the people who keep telling them you shouldn't be drinking pop every day. You're the people who've been telling them about, quantity of fries and fun things like that. So they were really taking those health tips at the end of the session and implementing them, which was great to see. And the engagement with other participants and the trainers was great. At the end of the program, there were some tears that they weren't going to see their trainers anymore, some small gift exchanges and tokens of appreciation. And that was all really great to see. But I think what we really missed is probably the key aspects. And this came in the form of a lot of parents who kind of sent emails or wrote letters to us and said how profound it was that it's the first time they asked their child what they wanted to do, and they picked something that was exercise related, whether they wanted to go play basketball, they wanted to go for a walk, where usually that selection would be they wanted to watch TV or watch a movie or go on a device. So that was interesting to hear from parents, as well as some parents saying, the day they attended, their child attended the fitness program, it was their most enjoyable family dinners at the house, or it was their child's best sleep they had were the 2 nights they went to the program. We had another mother talk to us about, their child being taken off bowel movement medications now that he's picked up exercise. So there were so many key things that we kind of missed the boat on, to be quite honest, because we just looked at that, those physiological measures. So we wanted to do a little better job of that in the next time around. And so the next time we really wanted to interview parents and support workers and try to gather that information. But we also wanted to fine tune from our general health measures to maybe more specific measures. So we looked at a groove pegboard test, which basically you take the little pins and you have to rotate them in kind of a key slot and drop them in. And we did see that fine motor skill got better over the course of the fitness program. And hopefully that makes them able to do more things of activities of daily living and those kind of tasks. Secondly, the Jepson test, the hand function, which is little things like picking up things with a spoon, transferring small objects in cans. And we could see that they actually got better with the exercise program. So the exercise program was having a bigger effect than just general physical health measures. It was helping with things like activity dailies of living and making them a little bit more independent with certain tasks. But what we really wanted to get to was the interviews with the support workers. And we did one-on-one semi-structured interviews with 10 support workers who had participants in our program. They averaged about 20 to 30 minutes in length. And the perception that came out of these interviews was kind of broken into 3 themes. The first thing being program structure. They really appreciated the program's consistency, that each person had their own volunteer to come through and help them. And the fact that they had the same volunteer most of the time was good. And that's definitely something we tried to accomplish. Now, there were times where midterms or exams would get in the way with a fitness trainer, and we would have to swap a fitness trainer out. And it was never an issue for us. However, it was a key piece trying to have that one-on-one to build that relationship, as well as the program resources, making sure when they got here that everything was set up, it was ready to go, and it made for a positive experience. Physical benefits did come up in the interviews, that people noticed they had better physical health and better physical ability. Things like skipping rope, the ability that before they couldn't skip rope and now they do, and those are things they want to do. And throwing and catching ability in terms of getting more fit. But there was also a social interaction piece that the support workers told us about. Their peers were there. They were hanging out with people, friends, making new friends. They were having fun. It was much more included, which told us that sport game activity is so critical. It's not just the resistance training. We need to have that group training to kind of get that social interaction. And then the psychological benefits. So seeing an increase in confidence, an increase in focus, and an increase in positive effect. And I will say, I won't go on this today, but if I had a CV of failures, the one thing we've been trying to really accomplish in this exercise program is trying to figure out if we've improved self-efficacy. And we've tried a variety of different things and have had very limited success. So it was interesting that these support worker interviews kind of gave us some context to something we've been trying to figure out. And then lastly, a key thing was after the program. So this continuous programming need. So they came down to our program, they participated for 12 weeks, they really enjoyed it. They kind of kickstarted their health journey, and it was, but then what? And what happens after? Which was a great question, and something, we felt bad about, that we got people started on this great journey and transformation, and 12 weeks later it was like, okay, go off, we're not here for you anymore. And so it's something we've tried to tackle recently. So in moving on in our journey in these fitness programs, 2 things kind of came up, is looking at advanced health and fitness evaluations. And this kind of came a lot from reviews that we got on some of our papers about how generalizable some of the measures are and repeatable and the validity of things. So we wanted to make that next step to convince people that our evaluations were accurate. But another one we wanted to look at was an impact on other gym members. And this kind of came from 2 different directions. Because they were asking to continue on in the program, we really wanted to partner with community gyms who maybe could offer a specialized membership or classes or opportunities or times for people to come in and it not be so expensive, a membership where you can use it kind of 24/7. So something that's a little more cost effective. And one of the things that kept coming up from gym owners is what the experience will be like in running programs like this and having other members in their gym. So half of it was trying to figure that out. The other half, and I'll credit Dr. Jonathan Weiss, who came up to me after one of my presentations at a conference and mentioned the word reverse inclusion to me. And I'll be totally honest, I didn't even know what reverse inclusion was. And he, he explained to me that you have all these other gym users who are not involved in your program, but are witnessing your program. What impact does it have on them? And so we really wanted to explore that to see what was going on to bystanders to our program. So looking at some more advanced testing for the first one, we were trying to do a more lab-based physiological test that would be really easy to administer. And instead of going over, very detailed and complex protocols and instructions, we decided to gamify some of these physiological tests. So instead of giving very complex instructions, all we needed to tell our participants was, if you can keep the needle in the green, that's all you need to do. So the faster they cycle, the more the needle would go, kind of like a speedometer in a car. And when we could maintain that time in the green space, we could collect heart rate. And then we would have a consistent heart rate, a consistent load in looking at heart rate response and how that might change kind of pre, mid, post program. So it really challenged us to be better scientists, I would say, or researchers, and figure out ways we could modify these tests to make them effective. And then we also looked at what did it look like from an exercise intensity standpoint. We got a lot of questions. Well, how hard do the participants work? So we use this neat device in the bottom left-hand corner, which will track exercise intensity, and it tells us how hard they work throughout the program. And we can see with these 12 participants, all but 2 were working in a moderate intensity workload. So they're coming, they're working out, they're pushing hard, and they're seeing that success. The mean intensity level is there, which was about 4 METs, and they're working in a moderate workload. If we look about how much weight they lift, so are they progressing through the training? So when they come in the first day and when they leave the last day, are they actually doing more work? And we can see actually pretty steep curves. So if we look at the first couple training sessions, they're lifting about 2,000 pounds in totality of the workout. And by the end of the program, they're up around 8,000 pounds. So they're doing about 4 times the workload by the end. Now, I will say the first couple of weeks, because it's more of an orientation, probably those volumes are a little lower. But if we look at week 5, it's about 4,000 pounds they're lifting, to week 12, which would be the 24th training session. That load has gone up about 50%. And is it translating? So if we look at flexibility, their flexibility is getting significantly better being engaged in the program. If we want to look at strength safely, we came up with this protocol here, where you can see he's going to pull up on a strap that's attached to a force transducer.
Come on, Gabriel.
So the participants are getting lots of motivation, and basically he's pulling up as hard as he can. And, we did the training so they can complete the task, and it reads out how strong their biceps are. Similar to their quadriceps sitting down, you can see the strap is around their ankle and the force transducer is tied behind the chair. And he's kicking out as hard as he can so we can read the strength of his quadricep. And if we look at these measures over the span of 12 weeks, the left bicep and the right bicep got stronger. And no surprise, the left quadricep and the right quadricep, got stronger. And we see about an 18 increase in leg strength. We could probably extrapolate with 18% more leg strength. There's more things that become available for someone to do. And we looked at other parameters like walking mechanics, so gait speed, stride lengths, and as well as reaction time tasks. So you can see in the photo, the participant's holding a stylus. It's on a red square. That red square would disappear and it would show up somewhere on the screen. So they would have to initiate moving from the red square to the new square that popped up. And if we look at that in motor preparation and motor execution, reaction time and movement time significantly got better. And so, we kind of put out all this data in some publications and looking at the effect of these health measures. But if we look at the bystanders, I think was just as interesting. And we published this paper in JODD a little while ago, but looking at what did the other gym members experience while witnessing our program. and the importance of exposure. And one person's quote there says, "I think it would be great if more students could be exposed to it," the APEX program. Not just people being involved in the research, but just being a bystander around it. The more people are exposed to those with disabilities, the more they'll understand, the less likely they are to discriminate. And I can tell you this firsthand. So when I do travel with our Lancer sport teams, and a couple of times we've been in Toronto, and once we've been in Kingston, or we've been out at a mall or a public location, and we see a community living group. And I always find it interesting that the athletes talk about, oh, you should see those people in coach's program, how hard they work, the exercise they do. It's all this very positive, upbeat, motivated image of kind of what the exercise program looks like, which I think is great. And maybe they don't have that same perspective if they're not a bystander and they didn't see that in action. So looking a little bit about what could we tell other gym users or gym owners, sorry, in trying to move this to more community-based off university campus. And I thought this quote was very interesting. It was basically the same. So any other day at the gym, a client with ASD/IDs outburst as the jock people that are screaming when they're lifting. It's basically the same, or it's actually less annoying. So I thought it was just funny, and that was a lot of questions or comments we had or concerns from gym owners, and we could actually extrapolate quotes from bystanders who said, when it did happen, it wasn't an issue at all. And if they were at a gym, they want a gym that's going to be inclusive. And so really, it is going to be a very big benefit to have these programs operating inside the gym. And it's a source of motivation for bystanders as well. So, we started targeting some more advanced health and fitness evaluations. We started looking at the impact of other gym users. And, the next big issue that came up was this issue of having a control group. And while I appreciate control groups for sure, it's hard to get people excited and get them down here and then say, oh, sorry, you're in a control group and you can't be a part of the exercise program when that's what they're really excited about. So we did work on implementing a control group, which was kind of our next cohort coming in. They would kind of do pre-testing, wait 12 weeks, do post-testing, and then they would start our next APEX research program. So we could get some control group data, and we could start looking at, if they're involved in the exercise program, these results are coming from the exercise program, and they're not coming from them just being 12 weeks older, which probably isn't surprising, but as we all know, the control group is important. Another kind of side task we went with this is looking at repetitive behaviors. And I'm not going to go into this in great detail today, but the idea, I think it's a complex issue. And so there's lots of data to support that repetitive behaviors are related to a decrease in adaptive functioning and potentially a hindrance to performing some tasks. But what if repetitive behaviors are positive expressions of emotion? So they're really enjoying something, whether it's the exercise or a program, and we actually see more repetitive behaviors because it's a positive expression. And we've kind of looked at learned patterns in sports. So if we look at a baseball player going into the batter's box, they go through a routine, or a curler who's making a shot gets in the hack and has a pre-performance routine. And trying to tease out this kind of repetitive behavior versus positive expression of emotion and kind of these learned patternings in sport. And so that's something that we have ongoing right now. So after all this, our whole idea was, how do we make a bigger impact? I think the program's been very good for the people who are involved. However, we've only been taking 12, 15, 20 people a semester. And so while we're maybe helping 60, 70 people a year, there's many more people who could maybe benefit from this. So in the big picture, we have an APEX program. We have materials and resources. We have educational resources. How do we put it all together so everyone can use it? And how do we get it so that we can sustain this active lifestyle in this journey? And our idea was to develop a manual. And so we evaluated all our APEX programs, all the exercise that we completed, and what we think are the main ones that we needed to be involved in the manual. We spoke with support staff, we spoke with family members about what they would like to see in the manual, what would be beneficial to them, what are they unsure about in starting their journey. And those were all really good conversations, because the manual became more than just exercises, it became other things too, like getting ready for the gym, what you do when you show up to a gym, what do you need to bring to a gym. So there was a lot of good collaboration here in the manual. And there's a whole bunch of sections, just to pull out a couple. There's cardiovascular training, there's an upper body strength section, and there's a lower body strength section. And this is kind of what it looks like, and it's completely free. You can download it at any time. All we ask for is people's information so we can send when we have iterations. So it starts out with a title and equipment type at the top. So this isn't a leg extension with a resistance band. And then we go through an icon of what the exercise equipment looks like. And then it goes step by step on how you execute the exercise. So we have the photos that are numbered, as well as some instructions inside the box to execute it properly. We have cues, so green circles and areas on areas of focus, whether it's we're looking at a joint angle, so how much you should flex your knee, or where that piece of equipment should be located. And then we have some tips and safety items. So we really want our participants, but as well as our support workers and our family members who can use this. And now if they go to the gym, they have this manual, they know how to do the exercises safely and effectively, and can it be implemented kind of without coming down to the university. So some of the topics I'll show you is about self-care and gym etiquette and staying motivated, and some nutrition as well. So in the manual, it's fully accessible. It's an educational resource. It's evidence-based, which I think is critically important. You know, it's visual, so it has icons, it has pictures, it as well has auditory prompts with modeling for universal design. So the instructional exercise videos, and this was the fun part, and all the people in the exercise pictures and videos are all people supported by Community Living who are paid to come down to the university and be our actors, if you will, our demonstrators. And I think that's a critical piece, that, you know, they were paid for the time, but as well as, you know, when someone is looking at it, they see themselves in these manuals and that they can do it. And so we also have a YouTube channel that goes with our manual. So this is how we store all the videos, so they're accessible to anyone at any time. So here's an example of our upper body stretch video.
Standing with your chest out and your arms at your sides, slowly bend to one side of your body with your arms, reaching down towards your toes. Reach as far as you can until you feel a comfortable stretch in the side of your stomach. Repeat on the other side. Sit on a chair or stand in a relaxed position with your back straight. Raise your right arm straight over your head and bend it so your right hand is on the middle of your upper back. Reach over with your left hand and grab the top of your right elbow. Pull your right elbow gently towards your left side until you feel a stretch in your right tricep. Hold this stretch for 10 seconds, then repeat on the other side.
So here's an example of an exercise now. So you've seen a stretch. Here's a seated row with machine.
Starting position. Sit down on the machine and place your feet on the front platform, making sure that your knees are slightly bent. Lean over as you keep the natural alignment of your back and grab the handles. Execution. With your arms extended, pull back until you are sitting upright. Keeping your upper body still, hold the handles back until you touch your stomach. Breathe out as you perform that movement, hold for a second, and slowly go back to the original position while breathing in. Keep in mind that it is safe practice to use a spotter when incorporating an exercise ball into your workout. Starting position. Lie on your back with the exercise ball between your lower legs. Place your arms at your sides with your palms flat on the floor. Execution. Raise your feet up towards your hips while squeezing the exercise ball between your lower legs. Once the ball is fully raised, hold it there for 1 to 3 seconds. Then slowly lower your legs. Stop moving your legs just before the ball reaches the ground and repeat.
So that's a few examples of what our exercises look like inside the manual and linked to our YouTube channel for storage. Other highlights inside the manual are clearly defined pictures, as well as the use of icons. So we got that from a lot of family members and support workers in community living, what icons would be useful and effective. And then you can see the hyperlinks in the bottom. So if someone has the manual open, they can just click on that link and it'll bring them directly to the video. So hopefully it's as easy as possible to utilize. So as far as the short clips, getting ready for the gym is one, and I'll show you that, as well as arriving at the gym and some proper gym etiquette. But also leaving the gym and returning home from the gym are things that can be found on our channel. And these really came from families and support workers asking us to put these together because they would really be helpful engaging in physical activity and knowing what to do to start this journey. So here's an example of getting ready for the gym.
At the beginning of the week, make a schedule to help you organize which days and times work best to fit your exercise routine into your everyday life. When making your schedule, it's important to keep in mind that while at the gym, certain times of the day can be less crowded than others. Depending on your preference, you may want to work within or outside these hours. Eating before going to the gym should be the first step to your workout. It's important that you make sure your body is fueled, energized, and ready to exercise. If eating a full meal, it is recommended that you eat 3 to 4 hours before exercising. Although light snacks such as a piece of fruit, granola bar, a handful of veggies, or yogurt can be eaten prior to your workout as well. Remember, hydration is also key to a successful workout. Having water with your meals throughout the day and during your workout is a great way to stay hydrated. Make sure all of your belongings are in your gym bag before leaving. On busier days, you might want to try packing your bag the night before in order to save time. Depending on the day of the week, how you get to and from the gym may vary. For example, taking the bus, walking, biking, going with a gym partner, or support staff are a few different options.
So here's once they arrive at the gym.
When arriving at the gym, always make sure to scan your gym membership when entering the building. In addition, always say hello to staff members at the front desk before heading to the change room. All clothes worn outdoors should be changed before the beginning of your workout and placed in a locker until you are finished. It is important that a proper change of clothes and a pair of indoor shoes are brought with you to the gym. Once you are changed, make sure to grab your water bottle, towel, clipboard, exercise protocol, and lock the remainder of your belongings up. Ensure the lock is closed firmly on the locker so that your belongings are protected. It's important to note that most gyms require members to bring their own locks. In addition, not only should you remember your lock, but you should keep the lock combination in a safe place where only you and a gym buddy can find it. If a lock requires a key, make sure it is kept with you at all times with the support staff or staff member at the gym.
So another things we've tried to add into the manual, some safety sections, some safety checklists, things to remember. So very easy lists that can be utilized, as well as some self-care items. So staying hydrated, nutrition, self-hygiene, what to pack and planning, some of the things covered in the video, just in a little more detail so that they're completely clear and comfortable with those aspects. And then we did talk a lot about gym etiquette, and this is something that came from parents who weren't, if they're not well versed in going to the gym, what is etiquette, what needs to happen in gym, whether it's putting weights away, what equipment needs to be cleaned, how does it get cleaned, and things like that. And then we try to have things in the manual about staying motivated. So how do we make it fun? How do we create goals for them and let them track their progress to keep them engaged? We also have a frequently asked questions section that we continuously build out. And then obviously on how to contact us. And so we want our Apex manual users to reach out to us and let us know whether we have a mistake in the manual or something's not quite clear, but also letting us know what other videos, exercises would be advantageous to add, as this is kind of always a work in progress that we update and keep track of the version models for them. And then we have a variety of appendices based on certain things that came to us from support workers and family. And then we have some tracking sheets. So an activity log of things they like to do, where they like to do them, tracking progress. So how many times have they worked out or what their fitness goals might be, and a daily journal reflection piece that many like to do kind of in their cool down and their trainer or support staff or themselves keep track of. So as far as the exercise clips, I only showed you a few. This is kind of an exhaustive list of what we have available. And as you can see, there's some that have equipment, some don't require any equipment. There's lots of ones that are weight machines, but also free weights. So depending on where they go, and if they don't have a machine, there should be a body weight or free weight exercise that they can utilize. So we want this manual to be, effective to be used outside of just our facility. So what are the implications to the manual? I mean, really, we want to have everyone to have access to safe and knowledgeable information so that they can do this safely and effectively on a regular basis. So have we made a bigger impact? This is Community Living's office in the university. We've come together, we try to develop this manual and get it out. We've done a lot of work throughout Ontario, whether that's different community living organizations or trying to attend workshops and seminars similar to this, and trying to get the word out and making people aware that the manual exists. And in Ontario, we've done a pretty good job. We've had a lot of people download it all across the province, which has been a good thing. And in the last year and a half, we've seen a lot of people pick it up across Canada. Maybe that's one thing the pandemic helped with, is people looking to get engaged in exercise with being home and having a manual that they can utilize. And to our surprise, it's kind of traveling a little bit across the world. We've had quite a few countries download it now. These are just some of them, but France, Australia, Turkey, USA, Cyprus, Myanmar, and Germany, and trying to reach out to them to see how they're using it and how we could potentially make it better for the situations they're in or their locations. So hopefully the manual is being used and it's having some success. So I guess this gets us to the question of now what, and I want to frame this with, we really want to keep this Apex exercise program going. But as you know, in running a community program, there's lots of expenses, and those aren't expenses we want to pass along to the participant. We want to keep that cost free, and we want to be able to support them on their journey. So it's led us to, how do we find more funding, or what else can we do that'll let the program operate? And I think one key piece that we want to look at right now is employment. And there's this very interesting thing that Special Olympic athletes have a 5 times greater employment rate. And reading that really struck me. And is it the sport aspect of it? Is it the training aspect of it? Get to self-efficacy and things like that. And it's something we really wanted to pursue. And we've kind of pursued employment in a couple different areas. So the first one is, we do have an MLSE Foundation Community Action Grant that's starting this summer. And what we're doing is we're combining structured sport and exercise within the job readiness training. So while youth are getting their job readiness training, they're also going to have workshops on health and wellness, but they're also going to come down to the university and work out in our APEX program. So it's another avenue to support our APEX program, but look at it kind of different entity. So here's some examples of some of the work that we've done in this job readiness program. So looking at before work checklists, so things like taking a shower, getting a healthy snack, getting 15 minutes of exercise before you head out, making sure you have a healthy lunch, your bag's packed, and you know how to get to work. But also educating them on good sleep hygiene practices. So if you want to be successful at the workplace, you need a good night's sleep, and how they can accomplish that. And always thinking healthy. So giving them ideas to explore around their workplace. Is there a park by their workplace? Is there a community pool or a rink where they can get that physical activity in? Maybe they have an hour lunch and they can get some exercise on the lunch break. And how do we build exercise into their daily lives? So this is a project we're really excited about and launching this summer. We have done some work on maybe a little different slant on employment, but looking at strength-based employment services, where employers are really seeking employment based on skill sets and being an asset, comparatively to kind of the traditional employment services where it's the right thing to do. They're supporting community, and looking at how that affects income security. And as probably a lot of you aren't surprised, if we adopt that strength-based employment practices, the hourly wages are better. There's a higher number of jobs outside sales and service sector, which is a big portion. But it leads to further income security. So more hours worked, leading to more permanent jobs and long-term consideration. So things like medical and dental benefits and full-time employment. And this project kind of came about similar to how we were trying to get community gyms on board. And we wanted to figure out, what were employers' thoughts or concerns or questions that they had about hiring people community living supported, and trying to get, the real answers so that we can real questions, I guess, that they have, so we can give answers. And we have made some nice videos that tackle some of the things, whether it's attendance, productivity, and things like that. We have an ongoing project where we've interviewed an employee, then the employer, a coworker, and a family member in trying to gauge that experience. So we are working on employment now through the exercise program. But what else can we do? I think there's a big impact on our student volunteers and their impact on their career choices and their volunteer engagement. And while I think this program is successful for our participants, I think it's just as successful, or maybe more successful, for our students. I think our students get so much out of engaging with this program, and maybe they don't realize it as much at the time, comparatively to when they leave. So here's an interesting quote from one of our former students. So it increased my confidence in working with this population in the future, as well as sparked my interest in autism as a whole. I truly enjoyed the experience, and I'm looking forward to assisting autistic individuals in future volunteer research and clinical opportunities. And when we started adding it up, APEX has had over 250 participants now through the exercise program, and we've had over 150 student volunteers, not including graduate students, internships, and other research projects. And so we were very lucky to get a SHRC Partnership Engage grant. And on this team actually is collaborating with Dr. Jonathan Weiss at York and another colleague, Dr. Sarah Shroom Benson at the University of Windsor. But we want to look at current volunteers. So what is it like while they're going through the program? And we're going to be doing some video journaling and some interviewing while they're working one-on-one in the APEX program. But the second half of the grant is to go back and look at past volunteers, so our APEX alumni, and how has volunteering with APEX changed their perceptions of people with ASD ID, and has it had an impact on their work and volunteer experience? And I'm very excited for this one, because we've had a lot of, you know, alumni come back or contact us, or we meet up with them and they talk about how enriching this experience was. And, you know, we're getting emails of, I've just opened a chiropractic clinic and I'm so excited. You know, I'm actively seeking out community organization groups to let them know that we want them here. And so, you know, at first I looked at it the lens of from an access to healthcare, but when we started writing this grant, there's access to a whole lot of other things. You know, we've had students who've gone on to law school and now lawyers, and we have people opening small businesses. So now it's employment opportunities. And so I think the web, I guess, that starts with all these alumni who've been involved in APEX and are going out. I think there's so many advantages to it, and the Sure grants can allow us to kind of pursue that and see how we can make it even more valuable to participate in APEX for our students. And then lastly, this is probably our recent stuff that's been presented at OAD, I guess, last week, but looking at the parental experience. And I feel like after doing this for 12 years now, you know, we've met a lot of mothers and fathers and who've told us their stories and their challenges and the uniqueness and how resilient they are. And we really wanted to explore that. And we were fortunate to get a MyTax grant and do qualitative interviews with mothers. And it was kind of split between supported residential living and living at home. And what are the challenges, and are they different, and just to see the resiliency. And I will say, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but this project literally just got started when the pandemic hit. So we already had you know, the interviews set up and REB through, and we got to track this situation through the pandemic based on this project. So we pivoted a little bit, which I'm sure we're all tired of hearing how we've pivoted. But we had this opportunity in this project to kind of get a good understanding of the effects of the pandemic, and, you know, what changes were made, and just how resilient families are, you know, and looking at things like people who couldn't visit their children if they didn't live at home with visiting restrictions. And, you know, window visits didn't work for everybody. Some were, you know, nonverbal or needed that touch aspect, and that doesn't happen in a window visit. Or, you know, seeing them online, and you know, that didn't work for everybody either. And just seeing the resiliency and the strength of mothers in this situation was excellent to see. So I'm about 2 minutes away, and thankfully getting to the end here for everyone. But I'd be remiss not to acknowledge people who've made this all work. So Community Living Essex County has been our partner for the last 12 years. They've been absolutely amazing. The participants, families, and direct support workers, just absolutely amazing people to work with, 100% committed, and they're really why we do all this. And lastly, the University of Windsor. So both the Department of Athletics and Rec Services, who allows us to use a lot of their space at very cost-effective prices, so we can offer this for free, as well as the Faculty of Human Kinetics, who supported us, and of course all the funding. Without these fundings, these exercise programs wouldn't operate, and people wouldn't have access to something I think everyone should have access to, which is the right to physical activity. So huge shout out to our funding. And as far as our APEX research group, so Dr. Sean Horton, who's the co-director with myself, as well as our collaborators there, you know, our graduate students and the undergraduate students. Like I said, we've had probably when you add them all up, over 200 people over the last 12 years who've contributed to make this successful. And without all of them, none of this would be possible. And I really want to thank the media too, because the media does come out and engage with us. And, you know, we always put our participants front and center, which I think is really important. But after every single one of these stories, we also get really good feedback, or people who want to engage or get involved. And so they've really helped us continuously move this along over the last 12 years. So with that, I'll just really again say thank you to Dr. Connolly for the invite today. This is kind of a career highlight for me. You know, I was reflecting back on this journey, as you all know. You know, I kind of come from a different background, and you know, 9 years ago, almost to the day, was the first time I presented at OADD, and to be honest, I was really nervous because when I got there, I was the only kinesiologist, and I wasn't really sure how it was all going to go over. 9 years later, we're here and we're still going, and everyone's been super supportive and with us at conferences and meetings and helping us out and sharing space with us. So I've really appreciated the journey, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thanks a lot, Chad, and thanks for walking us through the history and the development of this great program. And we, in some of the programs we're offering here, we noticed similar tendencies during our COVID precautions, is that a lot of our materials really had an upswing and people needing stuff at home and so on. So that could relate to that. The other thing I could really relate to is when you were talking about the unintended kind of effects. And that's the thing we noticed several years ago, was the parents of our participants telling us they sleep so much better. Well, and it's because they're legitimately tired instead of just existentially fatigued, So yeah, that was quite excellent. So thanks for sharing all that. There's lots of resonances there between your program and ours. So Elise has a question. I'm going to turn it over to Elise.
Thanks, Maureen, and thanks, Chad, for your presentation. It was really well laid out and informative. I appreciate it, and I echo Maureen in saying that I saw so much alignment with what we do at Brock, so it's nice to see a lot of similar things happening elsewhere. I just had a question about, you mentioned evaluating the APEX program, and I just wonder what methods were used to evaluate it, because being in the field and reading literature, the evaluation methods for programs like ours is quite limited. So I'm just curious to know what methods were used.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it's tricky. I guess it was an evaluation more so from families and support workers on their feedback on what was effective or what they thought worked really well, or things that could be done better, or how those could change. And so I think it was more of a scoping review of participants and families who've been through the process, and not like an external review where someone's coming in to assess it at that side.
Thank you.
Other questions? And do any of our guests have any questions or comments? Actually, Chad, I wanted to ask about funding, right? Because we totally agree. Oh, Jameson, okay. I'm going to take a question from Jameson, because I can ask you a question after Jameson does. Go ahead, Jameson, unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm done eating my cookie, so I can talk now. Chad, thanks so much for your presentation. I really appreciated learning everything that you've done over the past 12 years. It's quite incredible. I really am just curious about any kind of potential or anything you've navigated with implementing this in community gyms. I'll give you some background. I work as a recreation therapist for the Niagara Children's Center. So really helping families to kind of get involved in the community. All the resources you have are absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to be passing them around like hotcakes. Like it's really, really great. But just, have you had that experience of being able to connect with, a local YMCA or something like that to get that inclusive gym program going in that way?
So we've done a lot of work in that space, and I will say some of it has been successful and some of it hasn't. And when I say that, some gyms are interested in supporting it. They'll run a program in one section of their fitness facility, 2 times a week for an hour. we go down that road. We want it like inclusive. So we want community members to be like, we want them included and not kind of segregated to a room in the gym, and trying to explain that difference to the gym users. So we have had success though with gyms who are offering a couple of different options where the participant per se would have a membership, and their support worker or family member could attend with them and not need a membership. Others have offered reduced memberships, and they're entitled to go, say, 3 times a week. So it's not like something that's available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And so we have, put out to a lot of gyms in our area, and as well as our surrounding areas, who want to partner on these initiatives, and then we try to get them connected. There's also kind of a portal too that we've been trying to build out, where we're trying to get our participants engaged in maybe where they live, whether that's certain boot camps. I know some were going to like a jazzercise and some fitness programs like that, and just trying to find out what are all the options. And then we kind of had like a rolling list. So if someone was interested in karate, here's what was available in karate, or boxing, or certain sports in gyms. So it's ongoing, and we try to build that database, and then keeping the database up to date. But we're not engaged at kind of like formalizing having a program kind of off campus. We really want them to kind of continue that journey, and we're just trying to get the transition between the two kind of as smooth as possible, so they'll continue to engage.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I do agree that there has to be somewhat of a line as far as what we do in our professional context and what we encourage and empower people to do with the resources that they've been provided. So I completely hear you. It is a fine line. And that's helpful. I feel like I have somewhere to go as far as those families who really don't need my, day-to-day support, but they're wanting to investigate. I feel like the manual is a really great starting point, and just that insight of, maybe it is just identifying a way of what gym feels good and suits your needs, and then using the support or creating those conversations about inclusion on a case-by-case basis. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a really good question. Something obviously we're going to continue to work on, and happy to connect later if you want to kind of share what you guys are doing and what we're doing, and how we can maybe be more effective together. But that was one of our biggest hopes with the manuals. We had a lot of support workers who would come down, and after the first 2 sessions, they would literally say to us, like, I had no idea they could do that. But to us, we would say, well, if you asked me to go do the things that you do, like, I would have no idea how to do that. And so we really wanted that manual. So we had a lot of support workers who maybe support 4 or 5 different people. One of the people they support comes to our program, but now they're doing exercise with the 3 or 4 other people they support, because now with the manual, they understand, how do you get started? Like, if you're going to go on a bike, how fast do you go? How long do you go? And answer all those questions. So we're hoping the manual is a vehicle for family members and support workers to push it out to, have more people.
Thanks so much, Chad and Jameson. How about back to you, Elise? I see your hand is up again.
It's actually a follow-up based on,
Sure.
what Jameson asked. So, Chad, when you were collaborating with community gyms, what would you say was the most effective strategy to prepare them for welcoming this population authentically? Like, was there training their staff that needed to happen? Was it simply providing strategies that they can implement? Did they come to you for anything specific? I'm just wondering how you made that happen.
To be honest, I think it was just really open communication and telling the gym owners to really just tell us what they were nervous about. Because I think a lot of people were nervous to ask questions that would look like they were rude or not understanding of the individuals who were going to come. And then they were afraid to kind of ask those questions. So we kind of let it off with things like, you know, if you're worried about an outburst, these are the things, these are the strategies we have in place, and pulling out kind of some of those quotes that it's no different than when someone, you know, dumps the rack and the weights go slamming off the floor, and trying to make those connections, as well as how they're going to get started. So whether they want someone supported to get going, or do they want their fitness trainers, you know, to come down and view our program to see what it's like, you know, sharing some of the videos and some of the success stories. But I think just really trying to connect with them on being an advocate, and kind of, you know, you can ask me any questions and we'll tell you. And to be honest, like, we've been going for 12 years and we've never had, say, a serious incident, if you will. And I think they're worried that it's going to be serious incident after serious incident. And I think it's just that reassurance of, you know, it's going to be a positive experience, not only for your new members that you're going to have coming to your gym, but your members who are there and your fitness trainers. And, you know, it's something that some gym owners, you know, once we got a few on and engaged and we're positive, you know, we can use those examples of, you know, this gym went on, you know, because all the gym owners kind of know everyone. So kind of, I feel like once you kind of get in the group, you also have advocates working with you too, because you can say, oh, you should talk to so-and-so, like they've implemented at their gym, it's been really successful. And then you kind of get that sharing of ideas.
That's helpful. Thank you. Back to you, Maureen.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was going to mention we work with similar populations, but a lot of our participants require more supports than your participants. And I think we've experienced some reluctance among community facilities for participants. So in some ways, you know, it defeats the purpose in a lot of ways of what inclusion is supposed to do, which is to demonstrate that people can actually be together in a society and appreciate each other's similarities and differences, right? But you know, some of the support requirements of our complex profile participants, it does make it challenging for some organizations to try to figure out how are they going to manage this, right? So, but I was thinking, like, Elise and I were, I confess, we were doing a little bit of texting back and forth about some of the kinesiology measures and testing on the participants and showing the results. And I'm thinking how it's not surprising, because, like, these folks have bodies just like everyone else. Why wouldn't they improve, right? Like, they're not a different species. They're humans just like us. You know, of course they're going to improve. But it comes back to this whole lack of engagement, you know, lack of familiarity, lack of relationships. I was thinking about a quote from a researcher I read, Beth Haller. She studies media representation and disability, and she says that most non-disabled people learn about disability from media or popular culture, and not from actual relationships with disabled people, and specifically relationships that aren't only based in service provision, right? So you've got the non-disabled sort of being the helpers of disabled people, right? So the whole idea of a complete lack of awareness of a whole, you know, 22% of Canadians that coexist and you know, we're more alike than we are different. It's quite remarkable. I mean, I guess I'm hoping your students are discovering some of those things.
Yeah, and for sure they are. And I think that has kind of led to this SHIRT grant, because, and unfortunately with COVID, we haven't had alumni weekends and things like that. But when we run into people who are in the program, or people sending us, you know, like the number of emails we've got of a student who participated for a couple of years, they went to chiropractic college or physiotherapy. Now they've opened up a clinic and they're reaching out to those community groups because they know when they were involved in our program, some of the mothers would say, I'd really like to bring my son or daughter to the chiropractor, but it's just so difficult. Is the chiropractor going to understand? It's going to take more time, like all those things. And now we have people leaving this program, going in these specialized services and really promoting, like, yes, we want you at our clinics, and we understand. And I think a lot of it's breaking down barriers too. Like, I think all our students, when they come in, they're so nervous they're going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and myself included. Like, I still giving these presentations, like, I never want to say the wrong thing or make those those things where people think you're not understanding, but it's a learning process. But I think when people know you care, our student can maybe say the wrong thing or use the wrong word because their clients know they care. They've been with them for 12 weeks and communicating, and they've built that relationship. And so it's trying to break down some of those barriers too. We've heard that a lot from our students. Like, they're scared to engage because they don't know. And that's something we've really tried to establish, that, it's going to be a positive, and, you're going to learn all that, and you're not going to say one thing wrong, and, you're going to be kicked out of the group, if you will. But some of those barriers are really real.
Yeah. Of course they're real. Yeah, but I'm surprised, right, that there's still so much lack of interaction, right, between, it's like two solitudes. We live side by side, and there's very little overlap. And yeah, that's good. That's very good. So how have you found pitching your research to SHRC and to other kind of granting agencies? What's that process been like?
I think it's challenges to be creative. And when I say creative, I mean, we obviously want to do good research, but the heart and soul of it is to keep APEX going. So how can we keep APEX going? But we can't just keep redoing, general fitness measures. Like, we kind of know the answers to that, but what other things can we build on? And I think the SHRC piece specifically, and this volunteerism and student engagement, and the effect of how that ends up being like their volunteer choices and their career choices. And I think that just has such a big impact, because even if someone goes off and has a job that's not related to this, do they choose to volunteer? Or, even when they say, oh yeah, I was at a dinner party and I was telling them about when I was involved in APEX and all the amazing things the participants could do. Now those 7 people at that party are relaying the positive message and extending it. So I think it comes down to with the funding agencies. I mean, obviously we got to be on target for what the funding agencies want and what they're looking at. It's just a matter of how can we do that really well and maintain our APEX program. So that's why this latest one of tracking current volunteers and coming up with different methods, like the video journaling. So after they go after week 2, and we have a variety of tasks and a Gantt chart that they're going to be putting together, and really understanding the impact of these volunteer opportunities on student success and student engagement and work integrated learning and all these other key pieces. So it's just the research is moving away from, the standard physiological measures. And I think we're actually getting at some much more meaningful stuff. And we just have to bring on board people who are really interested and experts in their area and willing to help us out and engage with us. And so it's been good, but creative.
Yeah, we've had similar. Some things just get lost in translation, right? I think, so it's not so much the people in your program, it's the students, right? That is attracting the SHRC, right? So you're kind of you're working strategically. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the research is kind of the vehicle. So we want to know we want to study the students and volunteerism and career impact. But if we don't have the program, then
yeah, right, you can't do that. Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, no, I feel your pain on that one. Yeah. For us, we rely on volunteers a great deal, and we've discovered that they're our greatest strength and our weakest link. So when they're there and it's clicking, it's great. And when they're less committed and they go, yeah, I'm not showing up today, it's not so much.
Yeah, it's the one thing that makes me nervous every time we launch one of these programs, because they kind of get set up 3 or 4 months before the program ever starts, and every time it's like, I just really hope we get the 20 volunteers, and if we don't, I'm going to be there a lot.
Yeah, we know what that's like. We totally do. Yeah.
And we've been very fortunate. I will say we've been very fortunate. But yeah, we deal with it where the volunteer can't show up or they change last minute, and we gotta get someone and plug someone in place. And we've tried to layer it now where we have volunteers who are kind of one-to-one, and then we kind of have some of our previous volunteers who maybe can't commit, but they're kind of our on-call list. And we kind of have a project manager, if you will, who kind of oversees that, whether it's a grad student who's kind of working on one of the research projects or something. So we've tried to layer it and have plan B, C, D set up, but like all programs, they're a lot of work. As you very
They are
well
a lot of work.
know.
They certainly are. Yeah. Certainly are.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Chad from our participants? Well, Chad, I want to thank you so much for being here today. And we also have a YouTube channel, and you will be there for posterity now because we have recorded your session. And yeah, we're delighted that you were here with us today, and I hope that we can continue to be collaborators. It's our programs have lots in common, and I think we are working for similar kind of political and human rights kinds of issues. So yeah, and health issues, obviously. Yeah. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And yeah, hopefully when we can travel again, maybe I can get up your way and meet some of your people and further these discussions. I'd love that.
And we can get your way too.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for all your help, and I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Chad. And thanks everyone